Hey everybody, so Jon David had a decent night. There were a couple more scary episodes of just being tachycardic, meaning high heart rate, and being really hypertensive, which means high blood pressure. However, we really think that is primarily because he's awake under the paralytic. And if any of y'all have ever dealt with paralysis or like sleep paralysis, then you know how scary that can be. I have had sleep paralysis one time, and I didn't even know it was a thing when I had it. And so I can tell you that it is very scary. And then it's compounded by the fact that you can't move anything, and like you're just stuck there. And so I can imagine that from a baby standpoint, he doesn't know what's really going on. And so I think that is why we're seeing a lot of these episodes. However, the good news is that on the blood gases, it's reflecting that he's not really getting, he's not building a lactate. That is fine. So from that standpoint, it's been good. They've been working on increasing his sedation. And so that has been good. It started being kind of leveling out a little bit more. He's had more episodes, but as they've increased the sedation, they get him under control faster, and he's in a better spot now. Now, that being said, today he also had another echo. So that's 3 echoes in 3 days. The good news here is that all 3 of them pretty much are relatively unchanged for their function. And it's not that he has normal function like you or I, but his function has not changed. So like his function has not gotten any worse or any better. It's just been steady. So that's good. Also, they have found like a little flap. So on his aortic arch, which is going to play into a whole conversation here today about what they found in Cath Lab. But on his aortic arch, they've done 2 patches so far because it was it was small. And so they made an incision, put a patch to basically make it bigger. And they've done that twice already. It was actually in his first 2 surgeries. But when they did that, the cardiologist today on the echocardiogram found like a little piece where I guess like when you patch your pants, there's a little piece that's hanging off on the inside a little bit, but it's not causing any issues. It's just there. At some point, if it does cause issues, they'll deal with it probably at Cath Lab. But as of right now, not an issue. Now, that being said, he did go to Cath today, and what they did find was an issue. But they did the diagnostic part of like his pressures and things like that, and things were going well. Then they called us and said that they found aortic stenosis, and I'll explain what that is here in a moment. But just understand that it's not the best situation. They found it. They called in the surgeon. Typically in these situations, they would call in the surgeon. The surgeon would go to surgery and fix it with another aortic patch. However, given that he has had so many surgeries in such a short amount of time and is not in the best place in terms of stability, they were like, look, let's try and balloon this in the Cath Lab. If that doesn't work, then, if our hands are forced, we'll go to surgery. But right now, let's try and see what we can do in the Cath Lab. So, surgeon was there in case things did not go the way that they wanted, but they were able to balloon it. They did 3 different times in terms of 3 different sizes and got it ballooned out. His gradient was really high, meaning the pressure, it was causing backup, so like the pressures were really high. And so when they ballooned it out, they cut it by about half. And so that is good news. It was, for all intents and purposes, a success. So they will follow up with CT scans here in the next 24 to 48 hours to see whether or not that ballooning has kind of stayed like they want it to. If it doesn't, then we have to have more conversations about what's happening going forward. But the prayer that we are having right now and the hope that we're having right now is that ballooning will hold. It had up to the point that they left the Cath Lab, and they were there for several hours. So that is reassuring. And then there have also been some things clinically, like looking overhead, like his heart rate's been lower and things like that, that also kind of help support the fact that it seems like it is holding. So we'll just have to wait and check it with a CT scan here in the next day or 2. Also, they will have to go back for some point for his PA band because it was not tight enough yet to balloon. So that also kind of plays in our favor in terms of we'll have to go back for the PA band. And when they do that, they can also check for the aortic stenosis again and see if they need to just balloon it out again. So that is where we stand on Cath Lab. It was a success today. However, it was a very long day. Now, in terms of what aortic stenosis is, this is what it is. It is the narrowing of the aorta. So the aorta leads out of the left side of your heart and carries oxygenated blood to your body. So because it was narrow, it was causing backup into the lungs because the lungs connect to that side to be pumped out to the body. And so that was where a lot of the fluid was coming from. Also, it was causing his left side to pump harder, which is why his blood pressures will probably take a little time to settle down because since they've opened it up, his heart is still squeezing like it thinks there's a gradient there. It'll take some time for it to kind of realize, oh, it's not as narrow anymore, it's not as tight. And so it will take either days and or weeks for the pressures to kind of settle down on that left side. The way to remedy it in the short term is with a cath like we did today. In the long term, he will need another aortic patch. It will be a surgical intervention. And since we already have him planned to go into surgery to remove the PA band, it will be taken care of at the same time as that, which will be in several months. Now, one of the things the cath doctor did say is that he has a super heart because it is pumping really well. It's squeezing. The thing that it is not doing great is relaxing, which makes sense given how tight the aorta and how tight the pulmonary arteries are, because it's having to push against this pressure, one against the PA band that's holding it tight, and then one against the aorta with the aortic stenosis. They've at least relieved the pressures on the aortic stenosis. So then hopefully in a couple weeks, they'll relieve some of the pressure on the PA band, and then it will be a little easier for both sides of his heart to just pump. And hopefully it'll keep it from hypertrophying, meaning getting too stiff too badly. And so hopefully over the next couple of weeks, some of that stiffness will be taken care of with the interventions they're doing. Also, he had a PICC line placed today, which is a peripherally inserted central catheter. So it actually went in, I'm trying to think, his left arm here, and is going in. And basically it's where they run IV drugs, but that will go to the heart quickly, into the chest area quickly, so that way he sees them faster, specifically things like sedation. Then he also had another episode this evening where he was getting up in the 160s, 170s. Again, not as bad as last night or even this morning where he was hitting like 180s, 190s. But again, all of these episodes are scary for us because we have PTSD. He's looked like this pretty much every time that he's coded, where he's getting tachycardic, meaning high heart rate, and then he's getting hypertensive, high blood pressure, and then basically his blood pressure will crash, and then we end up in a code situation. So for us, it is traumatizing and scary to be in these episodes because they resemble exactly what we've seen before. And, logically, I know that it doesn't mean that he's having this episode, that's what it's going to lead to, but you have an adrenal response for that. You have a trauma response. So you're going to be scared about it. I've had people in the room, they're like, "You're shaking." I'm like, "Yes, I'm shaking because I can't control my adrenal glands. They're gonna give off a response. I'm going to start getting shaky." However, I do stay unless I have to leave. That's just, it's part of my anxiety. I like being there unless I can't be there. Like if I physically have to leave, then I'll leave. Now, that episode they had this evening, it took them a long time to titrate the sedation, but they have, going back to the beginning of the video when I was saying, they've started figuring out the sedation. They've increased it. Also, we kind of figured out that, one, he's got a tolerance because he's been on these drugs for forever. I think 4 out of the 5 months of his life he's been on these drugs. And 2, he has been getting drugs on the same dosing weight as what he had on June 13th. And so that is also a thing that we're thinking that he's probably gained some weight, but he hasn't been stable enough. He's had a lot of surgeries in a short amount of time, had a lot of open chest, had a lot of just instability. And so because of all that, he hasn't been able to get a weight. And so we haven't been able to change that. So even though it looks like he's getting these really, really high doses, chances are he's probably actually getting a more reasonable dose. We just can't adjust it based on his weight because his weight is from back when we could weigh him. Now, that being said, he did finally conk out after they gave him a good amount of sedation. And so he is starting to respond to it. He's in a better spot. So we are happy about that moving forward. Hopefully he'll be in a really good spot and we can start coming off of his vecuronium, which is his paralytic drug, here in the next 24 hours or so. Also, he's been able to wean down on his vent settings today, which is good, which means that his lungs are clearing up. So some praises here. 1, his lungs are clearing up. So we are happy about that because he is having better breaths. 2, he is peeing, which is actually one of the things that's really big into why his lungs are clearing up. Him peeing a lot is actually him peeing off the fluid that has been in there. 3, they found and addressed aortic stenosis, which was something they did not know. If not for Cath Lab, we would not know. And then 4, his heart was able to handle that for a good amount of time. Aortic stenosis is a complication that happens for a lot of kids with TGA. I shouldn't say a lot of kids. It's an uncommon complication of the arterial switch operation, which is how you fix transposition of the greater arteries, which is what Jon David has. There's only something like either 8 or 10% of kids who have the ASO end up with aortic stenosis. Of course, following his pattern, he has decided to be a rare kid and do the uncommon thing. So he has had this complication and now we are dealing with it, but he has been dealing with it for a while now. And so that is the praise here, is that during all this, and this is one of the reasons why the cardiologist said that he has a super heart, he's been dealing with this. He's been dealing with this for a while and nobody knew it. And that's nothing but God. So he has been really good dealing with this and having a super heart and having a strong will to live. Also, if y'all saw the picture for the video last night, it's a picture of basically my view in the room, and I'll show you here in a little bit. But basically there's a little stool I sit on, and I look at the bed and I look at the monitors, and that's kind of how I spend most of my day, which I'm sure a lot of people are like, that's crazy. But it's what I do. My role, as I see it, is to observe things and present the information to the doctors, and they can have that clinical information, and then they have the knowledge to make actionable decisions about him and what should happen. And so it has been helpful multiple times when I've been able to give them some information of, here's a pattern, and then they have been able to go, okay, that pattern makes sense, let's do this. Again, I know that that's not for everybody, but for me personally, it's just how I cope with this and how I deal with it. So Hunter had a good day. He went and worked out. As he told people, he worked out like daddy, which I have not worked out in a gym since before we got admitted for Jon David. So that has been a good while, over 5 months. He also has had some fun taking naps and found a skink, which is a lizard here in North Carolina, and he loved his skink. He thought it was funny. And so he had himself a good little day. But if y'all would pray for these 3 things, that his cath intervention will hold, that it will continue doing well for him, and that it will at least hold until that next time we get a cath, that his heart, his lung, and his kidneys will continue to improve, because again, they are all 3 tied together, and how each one of them does pretty much ties to the other one. So we need all of them to do well. It's kind of like the 3 musketeers. They've got to each help each other out. So all for one and one for all. The heart, the lungs, and the kidneys gotta go all there together. And then for all the kids and their families battling CHD, because again, this is not an easy journey for anybody. If y'all been following us, you've definitely seen it. Please pray for them, because it is incredibly difficult. And we are blessed with a wonderful support system and jobs that we have had the ability to save up time over the years. And also we're teachers, so we have the summers off. So like we have a good amount of flexibility in our schedules to be able to come up here and spend a lot of time with Jon David. Not every family gets that. So please, again, pray for all of the kiddos and families who are dealing with this, because I mean, there are times where you got kids up here who are by themselves who are 5 and 6, and it's not because the parents don't want to be here. They just don't necessarily have the ability to stay here with them all the time. So again, pray for them, because it is a tough journey. But hope y'all continue to choose hope daily. Y'all have a good night and God bless, and we'll see you tomorrow.
How big is he? 40 feet? Holy cow!
It's always fish with him.
We're gonna save him and fish with him?
Fish with him.
What kind of fish would eat the skink? What kind of fish eat lizards?
A big bass.
A big bass would eat lizards?